His leather boots were loud on the polished black stone floor that reflected warm torchlight up at him, a clunk and a scrape as he trudged along the broad arched corridor of the main entrance of the guild, heading towards the first reception room. He adjusted his grip on the black pack slung over his good shoulder and stifled another grimace as he dragged his injured left leg in line with his right and braved another step. Fiery pain bolted up his limb from a point just above his ankle, shooting through his entire body. Harbin growled under his breath, grinding his teeth together as he bore the pain and forced himself to keep moving. He could rest soon. He could sleep for days and forget his injuries and the fight that had brought him dancing too close to death. Again. But fuck, it had been a good fight. It had been worth it. The pain, the taste of blood on his tongue, the sharp crack of bones breaking beneath his fists, and the metallic tang flooding the air as his claws rendered flesh. A judder went through him, a brief flare of pleasure that racked his tired and battered body. It had been worth it, for that momentary and elusive sense of calm and belonging, of retribution and release, and the one thing he craved above all others, the one thing that fueled him, drove him to keep striding forwards, stopping him from looking back, and that he did his best to pretend didn't exist inside him like an eternal bloody flame. Penance. Penitence. Harbin pushed away from those two words. They had no place inside him. They were impossible for him to achieve, the one thing beyond his grasp, forever just out of reach. His sins were too great. Atonement was nothing more than a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. One that haunted him despite his best efforts to escape it. Voices rang along the black-walled corridor towards him, and he ignored them, not interested in the idle banter of the rest of the guild males, as they took a welcomed breather from their profession in the safety of their home. He was only interested in taking a breather himself, a long one. Maybe those days might roll into a week of sleep. He sighed at the thought. His broken body probably needed that much rest in order to recuperate swiftly, and gods knew his mind needed that amount of time to pull itself back together. Unlike some members of the guild, he didn't have the advantage of being able to accelerate his healing process. The elves were lucky sons of bitches. Although you couldn't pay Harbin enough to make him switch places with Fury. The male's eyes were verging on black now, only a sliver of violet remaining around his pupils, like a dying corona of the light in him. How long before Fury lost himself to the darkness? Hart, the chief and founder of their guild, often wore a look when he was watching Fury, one that told Harbin that the elf knew their comrade was circling the drain, and it was only a matter of time before the darkness consumed the last of him, and transformed him into something straight out of a nightmare. Harbin dragged his bad leg up and managed another step, quickly shifting his right before his fractured tibia gave out under his weight. It was times like these, when he was fresh from what had felt like more of a war than a fight, but had emerged the victor against all odds, that he couldn't help wondering just what color his eyes would be if the darkness that lived within him could show in them just as it could with the elves. Would they be darker than midnight? Was he as close to falling into the abyss as Fury was? On days like today, he felt as if he was. Every inch of him hurt now, as it sank in that he was home and his mission was done. But it wasn't a physical pain. He could no longer feel the hot burn of his wounds. He could only feel the cold burn of the hollow inside of him, the scraped-out chasm where his heart used to be. Harbin idly rubbed his chest with his free hand, not feeling the pain as his left shoulder blazed, his healing skin rupturing again beneath his tight black t-shirt. Warm wetness bloomed there, soaking into the cloth before trickling down his biceps. "You look like hell," someone muttered as they passed him, heading towards the doors. Harbin ignored them and kept moving forwards, determined to reach the sanctuary of his quarters and lock himself away for a week of uninterrupted sleep. He finally stepped into the first reception room, an equally black affair that had always looked as cold and imposing to him as he supposed it was meant to be. Hart had done a good job of creating the perfect image for their guild, building a black fortress in the middle of what had once been little more than a wasteland in the free realm of hell. An entire town had sprung up around the guild, catering to those who were drawn to it, either as a client or an assassin.